Hey y'all, Melissa Watson Ward with Shattering Ceilings here for another interview. Today I am joined by Courtney Thomas. Courtney is the Senior Advocacy Strategist at the ACLU of South Carolina. And we're going to talk a little bit about policy. So, Courtney, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, Courtney, I want to talk a little bit about Project 2025. I know that's been on everybody's mind the last couple of weeks. I've been seeing a lot of tweets and Facebook, for those of y'all who still Facebook posts about it. And people, I think, are concerned about it. I'm hoping they're concerned about it as they should be, but may not really understand what Project 2025 does. So, can you talk about it from the ACLU standpoint? Is this something that y'all are concerned about? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so I'll just start at the beginning. So Product 2025 is essentially a playbook for the possible next Trump presidency. And it was created by the Heritage Foundation, and it is a over 900 page document that talks
Mm.
about what the next Republican president, it could be anybody. So I just want to make sure that this folks understand that this is not just about the next election. It could happen at any moment. Okay. So the next Republican president, it gives a set of recommendations about how the federal government and the bureaucracy as we understand it could be essentially broken. And the idea is that this Product 2025 would allow the next Republican president to hit the ground running on disturbing what we know right now is our civil liberties and civil rights. So, from the ACLU perspective, it doesn't matter what you call it. Product 2025 and the ideas behind it are an absolute threat to our civil liberties and civil rights.
Wow. So, can you tell us a little bit about, if you know any specifics about how that may impact women and children? 'Cause, my concern, I'm concerned for all people, honestly. But this show is really focused on women. And I tell people women's issues are family issues are community issues. So, how will Project 2025 impact women and families?
Yeah, so I want folks to take a moment, and I'm not recommending reading the entire thing. I don't think anyone can or should. It's over 900 pages, but there are certain sections that I think are important. So maybe read the introduction and then do a quick little word search, control F, and find things like abortion and families and women. Because there are some very distinct policy recommendations in Product 2025 that, as you said, are an absolute danger to women and children. So, for example, they want to outright ban mifepristone, ban gender affirming care. They want to use school choice as a tool to gut public education. They want to remove terms like gender equality and DEI from any laws and federal regulations that already exist within the federal government. So, even if you didn't package this thing as Product 2025, there are very distinct harms that would directly target the most oppressed people in our communities, which are, people of color, women, and children. So, um, regardless of your issue, there is something within this document that you should pay attention to. And I, of course, urge people, of course, to pay attention because Product 2025 is in the long legacy of the far right blatantly publicizing what they plan to do,
Mhm.
right? So if you start with maybe Nixon's silent generation or silent minority, and then you move over to Reagan and Lee Atwater, and they've been publicizing their plans for a generation. And this is just the very next step in that. And what I think is maybe the most concerning about Product 2025 is how surgical it is, because you wouldn't necessarily think in a political party or anyone's strategy document, they would get so far deep into the weeds. But this thing is 900 pages for a reason because they are surgically targeting our civil liberties and civil rights in a way that will impact every single person, whether you know it or not. And South Carolinians in particular need to be concerned about this because I know that Project 2025 is targeted at the federal government, but we've already seen politicians here in South Carolina taking pages from this plan. So, regardless of what happens at the national level, groups like the Harris Foundation already have very, very loyal foot soldiers in our legislature and also even down to our school boards and library boards. So this is a far-reaching thing, whether you pay attention or not.
So let's back up a little bit. For those of y'all who
Mhm.
don't know who the ACLU is and why they care about this, can you talk a little bit about why these are issues that the ACLU cares about, and what is the ACLU prepared to do if these policies start to actually be implemented?
Yeah, so just the ACLU of South Carolina, we're the South Carolina affiliate of the larger organization, the American Civil Liberties Union. And we do a variety of things, right? So we pursue litigation that protects people's civil liberties and civil rights. We also organize within our communities, and we are also there to educate folks. So part of what we're doing right now is educating folks about this threat, but I also want to direct people to ways that they can get involved. So they are able to um, advocate within their communities, but also get engaged with our legislatures. So I mentioned earlier that there are people who are enacting Product 2025 long before 2025
Mhm.
here at our legislature. So the ACLU and some of our partners here on the ground, we've already been able to fight some of these attacks um, as they've come. So, just a real example of that comes in the area of education. So, we've been able, fortunately, to fend off some bills like H 3728 that would basically put a gag order in our classrooms to prevent them from talking about the realities of racism and white supremacy and diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, um, we've been able to fend off that for now, but this fight is not over, and we know they will try again. I mean, prior to 2025 is them telling us that they will try again. So, um, the ACLU's role is to really educate and advocate, and when necessary, litigate to protect folks' civil rights.
Awesome. And, I know that with the ACLUs, there have been some interesting cases that y'all have taken, but where I appreciate the ACLU is that y'all stand on principle and y'all are not there to necessarily pick sides in battles, but to stand on the side of people's civil liberties, even when you disagree with maybe their stance on things. You still fight for people's civil liberties. So that I really do admire y'all as a principled organization that is willing to even fight for with those that y'all disagree with. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, our real allegiance is to the Constitution and
yes,
not to any particular political party. That's why we are nonpartisan, because the ACLU has taken action nationally, has taken action against administrations that are both Republican and Democrat. So it's really about protecting our ability as individuals and a collective to live freely, because that is what the Constitution provides us. So any attack to that, whether it is from one part or another, is something that the ACLU speaks out about.
yeah. So what can the average person do that's concerned about Project 2025?
Yes. So, I think the most important thing you can do is pay attention. And I'm so grateful to media outlets like The Arena who are like ringing that alarm bell so loud, because it would be very easy for this to be like some, niche right wing thing that people kind of ignore and laugh off. But the most you can do is pay attention and then tell your friends, but also take action. So, um, I mentioned earlier that Project 2025 is already being enacted here in South Carolina. So, what folks can do is pay attention to the candidates that are on their ballot from the top to the bottom. So, take a look at what these folks are standing for and really research what they've said in
Mm,
public about education, civil liberties, and our LGBTQ plus community, because sometimes the evidence, like part of 2025, is right there in our face. So we just need to um, be able to pay attention and also do a little homework. So you can go to scvotes.gov and look up your sample ballot and look for information about candidate platforms. And I also think another thing that we can do is to prepare ourselves, because as wonky and kind of academic some of these conversations can be, plans like this are a rallying cry, unfortunately, to some of the worst instincts in our politics. Because as a person who did try to make it through some of Project 2025, some of the language is shocking and scary. And I don't want folks to be discouraged by what's going on right now, because it would be so easy to say, oh, this thing is so big, this thing is so scary. What can I do as an individual? What you can do is, of course, pay attention, but also this is the time to turn inwards to your communities, because Project 2025 and what's going on, it's a signal that there are some pretty ugly days ahead for us as a country. And the best thing we have is our solidarity and speaking out, speaking up for each other. So the best thing you can do is to be just as organized as the people who would be willing to degrade our civil liberties. So we really got to work together.
Yes, I agree. And the reason I keep talking about Project 2025, because you may be like, well, Melissa, I've listened to several interviews and podcasts where you bring it up, is because it is so far reaching across so many different topics. And it will change the fabric of our nation if these policies are enacted. Now, are there improvements that can be made in government? Absolutely, there are improvements that can be made in government. But y'all, this doesn't just seek to improve, this seeks to burn down, established norms, safety net programs, that have actually seen by evidence that they've worked to make our country a better country, like, for example, teen pregnancy prevention. The Heritage Foundation also released a 2023 budget that seeks to eliminate that. And so when you're talking about these things that have actually shown progress for our country, they're willing to roll back. What is the end game here is what you need to ask yourself. What kind of country or what kind of state are they trying to build for us is what you should ask yourself. And I'm thankful that we have organizations like the ACLU that will step in for us, but y'all, we have got to be informed. So democracy is a participation sport, is not just a spectator sport. We've got to all participate, whether that's by voting and by holding our elected officials accountable and realizing and recognizing how they're voting and holding their feet accountable to how they're voting on these issues, because we can't just vote once every 4 years and forget about it, because they're behind closed doors enacting policies and voting for things that can really change our life. So Courtney, I wanted to ask, how can we support the ACLU?
Yeah, so you can consider joining one of our many coalitions like South Carolina Freedom to Read if you're interested in, protecting education as well as preventing censorship. You can join the Faith and Justice Roundtable or SC Unite for Justice and Equality. You can sign up for updates because, we are sending out such good educational information. Go to aclusc.org. At the top of our homepage, you'll see an opportunity to sign up for our newsletters and information. Also, follow us on social media. We also have a podcast, shameless plug, called While I Breathe. So we're having some really deep conversations with some of the folks who are unsung heroes of democracy, like teachers and librarians. So I encourage folks to, of course, come together in our community, but also find your people. And I'm hoping the ACLU that we're your people.
Yes, find your people. We talk about that a lot on this podcast, about finding your community. And so find your people. The ACLU is out here doing great work. Courtney, thank you so much for sitting down with us today and talking about the reality of what Project 2025 could mean for our state and our country.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, y'all. You know what to do. Make sure that you subscribe to Shattering Ceilings and the Arena SC so you can continue receiving good information, or whether it's not good, Project 2025 we're talking about, but you get informative coverage of what's going on in your country, like in your state, like we did today. So make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode of Shattering Ceilings.